especially the elected officials that ran to the cameras today, acted in a solemn manner, called for prayers, and will once again do absolutely nothing. Houston Police Chief Art Acevedo joins us now. Chief, thank you for coming on New Day. I'm very sorry for what happened outside your community there. I know you are friends with a retired Houston police officer, Jim Barnes, who was one of the school resource officers who, by all accounts, acted heroically, engaged with this shooter, got injured in the process. What do you think should be done here, Chief?
Well, first and foremost, we need to start holding public officials accountable for their failure to enact common sense gun reform that deals with keeping firearms in the hands of law-abiding Americans of sound mind. I'm fortunate I'm in the city of Houston working for Mayor and Sylvester Turner that gets that. We're starting to do something at the local level. But at the end of the day, it's clear to me, and I think to most Americans, that despite the fact Americans want action, because of the times we live in, it's all about primary politics, and the base of both sides of the political spectrum hold us hostage. It's time for us to take matters in our own hands and maybe start using the ballot initiative throughout the entire country to say enough is enough and enact measures to keep firearms in the hands of law-abiding Americans of sound mind.
Now, listen, I get the arguments in general, specifically with the Santa Fe shooting. The kid used a shotgun and a .38 revolver, legally bought by his father. We don't know how they were stored, but even if they were improperly stored, and that's how the murderer got them, it's only an misdemeanor on the books in Texas, which is like barely a slap on the wrist. This case doesn't really set up that well in terms of we were one law away, one gun control law away from stopping this shooting.
Well, no, it's not about one law. It's not about guns. It's about everything that we need to do that impacts these issues. It's about education and teaching kids how to manage with anger. It's about mental health. It's about domestic violence and getting guns away. There's so much that can be done, and it's about consequences. If you're going to have firearms, you need to secure them. It's about holding the gun manufacturers accountable and requiring them to have safety measures such as biometrics on triggers. That if we can put a man on the moon and we can put spacecraft on Mars, we are the American people. We're a pragmatic nation. There's a lot that can be done, and it's not a zero-sum proposition. We need to have a comprehensive, national discussion and national action on this issue of gun violence.
Chief, what's your take on hardening up schools? You know, one of the ongoing debates, it's troubling to some people, it's reassuring to others, which is get more trained people in there who know how to use a weapon. You had 2 school resource officers in there who were armed, and again, by all accounts, engaged heroically here. The cops were on scene fast. What do you believe about hardening up schools and what should be done?
Well, I think that any facility, whether it's a school or a theater or a business, an institution, you always want to look at your security measures, your safety measures, your fire safety measures. But it's not a one item solution. We need to have a comprehensive approach to dealing with a public health epidemic we call gun violence in this country, and it's got to be comprehensive, or we'll be having this conversation long after you and I are gone from public service, and long after we're gone from this planet and this earth. We've got to move forward. We've got to move in all directions, and we've got to come together now. And we need to stop with this really ugly political rhetoric in this country that I really believe what we consider the new norms is completely contrary to the history of this country. We need to get back to being pragmatic people that speak about issues without demonizing people based on the color of their skin or their religion or nation of origin. There's a lot that can be done and a lot that needs to be done, and I'm hopeful that we're going to move ahead on this.
If they came to you in Texas, because a lot of these laws are getting done on the state level now because of the constipation on the federal level, if they came to you and they said, Chief, give us 3 things we could do that would make a difference, what would you offer?
Well, comprehensive universal background checks with real teeth and real consequences from those that actually try to circumvent that process, try to buy a gun when not supposed to. Real absolute consequences when people that aren't supposed to have firearms have them. If you use a firearm, real consequences that people need to know they're going to go to prison. And lastly, we need to deal really with mental health issues and how we can deal with being able to get guns out of the hands of people when there's proof that has some emotional issues that they really aren't safe to be with firearms. And that's just 3, but there's a lot more that can be done. It's not that simple of an issue, but I guarantee you there's a lot of steps that can be taken. And prayers is not enough. Prayers don't do what we need to be done, which is enact good policies.
It's interesting. One of the moms that I met down in Santa Fe on Friday night said to me, we want the prayers. We need the good energy right now, but it's what you're praying for. She's like, I hope people are praying for us and for our strength to get through this and cope, but also for people to make it so that this doesn't happen again. Does that sound like the right prescription?
Absolutely. And the only ones that are going to make that happen are the policymakers, and if they're not going to do what they need to do, it's time for us to find new policymakers. And again, I'm thankful that my boss, my mayor, who before he hired me, I made sure that on these issues we saw eye to eye, so I can be true to my own professional convictions. He's taken the lead here, and I think that's going to start happening around the country.
How's your friend Jim Barnes doing?
I was there late last night. He's still in the fight for his life, but he's tough. His wife, Ashley, and their children are beautiful people. They're so grateful for all the prayers, but they still need prayers for a recovery, and I hope he can fully recover to get back into what he loved to do best, which is protect children, which I think was on display with his courage as he ran towards that gunfire with his colleagues at Santa Fe. And but for them, who knows how many more fatalities there would have been.
You know what? It's a morbid thought, but it is true. There were 1,400 kids in that school on that day. Chief Acevedo, thank you very much. Send our best to your friend and his family and to the whole community down there. Appreciate you having a constructive conversation about this.
Thank you. Have a great week.
You too. Bob.
All right. So